event. And the co-main event, while a good win for Aljamain Sterling, it wasn't. Aljamain Sterling's bantamweight reign is very not disappointing. I feel sorry for him because of the reign, because there's conclusive questioning for each of his wins. Obviously, the DQ win against Petian in the first fight. Um, Many people thought he shouldn't have been champion off the back of the DQ, but those are the rules. Then he wins a split decision against Petian, and again, there's questions there because it's a split decision; it's not unanimous. And he fights TJ Dillashaw with coming into a fight with an injured shoulder, a shoulder that popped out back in April. So Aljamain Sterling is in a rough spot, and he is the undisputed bantamweight champion, rightfully, and should be respected as the bantamweight champion. But again, there's still questions of his reign, whereas that shouldn't have been the case on Saturday night because he put in a spectacular performance, regardless of TJ's status and health. Aljamain Sterling dominated that fight from start to finish. He showed his takedown credibility. He showed his ground and pound. He showed all sorts of, you know, all sorts of facets that you'd expect from a champion. But again, there's a but on that win because TJ Dillashaw again. He apologised to the bantamweight division, rightfully so, because he let the division down. He let the fans down on the night. He let Aljamain Sterling down on the night. Yes, he earned a little bit of respect for himself, in terms of continuing to fight with a dislocated shoulder going to the second round, and continuing. Obviously losing a limb in the octagon, that's 25% of your sort of arsenal and defense mechanism gone. Um, so respect to him for that, but he then, he gave he took respect in one hand and then gave it straight back, saying that his shoulder popped in April and popped or dislocated 20 times at least in camp, which I kind of get where he's coming from. Of course, he's come off the back of a 2 year layoff again. That's his own decision through his own stupidity to take substances. That's not something we can look over with any sort of any sadness or reflection of. Oh, it's just one of those things. He done that to himself. It's not an injury like a McGregor leg break or a Weidman leg break, or it's not an injury where you go wasn't their fault. He took enhanced substances. He paid the consequences, and that was a 2 year layoff. He comes against Corey Sandhagen and gets a split decision win, but then has to take another year off, and he's 36 years of age, having lost 3 years of his career without any competition, and probably his prime as well. He lost his prime again through his own stupidity. That's not something to you know to deal with lightly. Um, but you can see he wants that payday. You can see he wants to test himself. And a fighter is a fighter. At the end of the day, they're gonna go in there whether they're calves torn, their ACLs gone, their arms dislocated. They're gonna go in there and want to fight because that's what they do. That's their job. I would say this is probably more on the team and the medical staff at the UFC for allowing him to get in the octagon in the first place. If his team know that he's dislocating shoulders in camp, then the team, as much as the referee has the fighter's best interests that are in the cage, the team should have the fighter's best interests at heart outside the cage. And if he's injured, then pull him out of the fight. Don't let him go in there and fight. So it only prolongs his rehabilitation. It prolongs his return if he returns, because that shoulder's going to be out, and by the time he comes back, to be 37. If it can be repaired, because obviously he's had 2 shoulder surgeries in the past. So he's in a sticky situation, and his team should have done better. He should have done better knowing that he's injured. But again, he's a fighter, as we mentioned. He's going to step in there any condition he's in. And Mark Goddard, I think, should have done it a little bit better as well. Of course, he knew backstage, or if they got told backstage, if his shoulder pops out, let him continue. We know about it as an injury. I like Mark Goddard. I think he's the best in the business. And because I think he's the best in the business, I think maybe he could have done a little bit more to prohibit that. Because again, as I just mentioned, the referee has the fighter's best interests in the cage. So I think that needs to be echoed a little bit more. And of course, the medical team by the UFC, of course, they've done medical checks all week. They should have picked something up from TJ Dillashaw. Again, he's got responsibility to tell them, but you'd hope they would be aware of the dislocated shoulder or a shoulder having problems if it's popping out as often as TJ said. So yeah, a really poor showing, and you know, for the rest of the bantamweight division, a very poor show of respect to them. Obviously, you got Cheeto there and Corey Sandhagen waiting in the wings, who could have fought Aljamain Sterling. Of course, we know Merab's not going to be fighting him. You know, if we found out in April, Jose Aldo might have got that title shot against Aljamain Sterling. You know, he could have, instead of taking that fight against Merab, he would have been in the prime spot for the title shot. So we could have lost Aldo fighting for the title one more time. You know, we could have lost Dominic Cruz fighting for a title, albeit, you know, he was further down the rankings when he fought Marlon Vera. But yeah, definitely, Jose Aldo has a probable claim as being one of the next in line if TJ Dillashaw was unfit. Corey Sandhagen and Cheetah Vera, following suit behind it. So yeah, very disappointing for that. And he owes the division an apology. He gave the apology, and of course he's going to be out 6-8 months, maybe a year. So he gets his karma for that while the division moves on. But yeah, if that was Marlon Vera this weekend, I would have been pissed off, to be honest, because, looking at the co-main and the other bantamweight fight, which we mentioned, he's lost one title opportunity, and he might have lost the second one to a guy he's already beat in the division in Sugar Sean O'Malley. But let's have a look, of course, at the statistics and the results from the fight in the co-main event. 148 out of 181 strikes. Only 13 landed from TJ, but of course 8 of them significant, whereas 72 significant from the champ and 5 out of 8 takedowns. So it was a dominating factor. It was hard to give it a performance of the night or overlook it too much because of the nature of the injury and how TJ wasn't 100% again. TJ's decision has reflected badly on Aljamain Sterling because he's not been able to properly defend his title with a fully fit opponent, so he doesn't get the just rewards for that win, unfortunately. For Aljo, again, I think, well, it's going to be Sugar Sean O'Malley next, as we know, and yeah, it was a poor, disappointing title the fight around because there was so much potential riding on it. The fact that the way it played out became a disappointment for everyone involved. Now, if you are watching, make sure to hit that follow button. Of course, we're on the way to 2,500 followers. So yes, if you can help, and if you want to send a question in or send some stars in, please do as well. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw. And of course, the main event is Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. Of course, actually, talking on before we move on, talking about the dislocated shoulder, it was very interesting and seeing that parallel between, of course, in Bellator 286, Aaron Pico dislocated his shoulder in the first round against Jeremy Kennedy, and again he held the round, got to the stool, and they pulled him out because the doctors came in and pulled him out, and rightfully so. I thought that was going to happen again in the UFC. They are the premier organisation, so that was a little bit worrying that they let him continue to compete, almost seemingly self-policing and TJ pretty much self-policed him through the second round. Yes, they did pop it in, contrary to Aaron Pico, who they didn't pop it back in by the time the bell had rung for them to restart the second round. So yeah, it's not a good showing and not a good look. You could have said, right, the fight's off, we'll reschedule it in 2-3 months, or as I mentioned before, we give Jose Aldo the shot. He's next in line. He deserves a title shot after the run he was on prior to the Merab fight, and we get a full capability, full health co-main event for everyone to enjoy. Because let's not forget, the UK had to pay for this, Ireland had to pay for this on pay-per-view. Of course, America and other territories had to pay for pay-per-view. So they deserve a full card with a full health and full transparency. And while all fights not on paper might not be 100%, you'd hope all fighters stepping in there are as close to 100% as possible to give themselves the best showing and us the best showing. Now, someone who did give us a good showing was Sugar Sean